welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com. What's up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Streckbein, joined every Friday by my main man, Derek the Kid Bell. Today, we're breaking down the Steelers' defensive front, the defensive line. We don't want to mistake in that, and everything to expect, not to expect, worries, excitements, the whole nine, as we go through this series of breaking down every part of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Derek, it's been a good week. Nice and sunny. NHL draft just ended. Experienced my first NHL draft, let me tell you. I am so thankful that I do not have to remember all of those names ever again. You think college football names are wild? No, not even close. I saw kids that I was just like, you're 15 years old, first of all. And second of all, there's no way I'm remembering your name for the next 15 years. You have 4 first names. Crazy. Anyways, as I said, beautiful day here in the Berg. How you feeling, my friend?
It's the pronunciations for me. I mean, you got a bunch, obviously it's, not just American born players. So it's kind of fun. I always like when I hop on the timeline at work and there's something like that going on, whether it's like something exciting for like the Penguins or the Pirates, something that I'm not too drastically involved in, because like it's fun for me to see it from like a third kind of perspective. So yeah, it was kind of funny seeing everybody. I also like, as a diehard fan of the NFL draft, it's also, there's a couple really good follows that I follow on Twitter that were breaking players down. I was kind of learning some stuff, so I liked that.
Breaking some hockey. See, like that's the thing, is like I'm like new to the hockey game. I came out here and like everybody's like, dude, you don't know, you grew up by the Baby Pens. I was like, I can name 5 people who know who the Baby Pens are back home.
Yeah.
And no idea. And then I watch it and people are like, oh, he's doing this, he's doing that. And I'm just like, wow, man, looks like a bunch of skating to me. I have no idea. But it is crazy. I think hockey is such an, like, if you're into hockey, hockey's awesome. Like such a cool sport. Better than, I mean, I know you're a basketball fan, but I'm really not a basketball guy at all. You're out there watching Duke. I'm just like, yeah, man, I could do this in my backyard. Whatever. I can't skate.
I would, if it wasn't for the third shift stuff, I would watch a lot more. I would love to watch more basketball, but I would definitely get into hockey. It's just like, most of the games and stuff are obviously at night, so it's kind of hard for me to get really too invested because I work at night. But
I know.
No, Jesse Marshall is the dude. He's not gonna see this, but I did want to throw him a shout out. He does like the Penguins, like athletic stuff, but he's a guy who I've followed for a little while. But he's awesome. He's way too smart for me. I can't really keep up with what he's talking about, but I think he's really interesting to hear talk. So.
Yeah, he is the dude. And just to touch on the late night stuff, first game I ever covered for the Pittsburgh Penguins was the first playoff game. That was the first game I ever had to watch. And it went into, I believe, triple overtime, ended at 2 a.m. I was like, this is awesome. Can't wait to keep doing this. Great time. Yeah. But I love hockey. So shout out to all the hockey guys who got drafted. Great sport. All right, Derek, I made a promise to our boy Connor Williams that I was going to lead off the show with this question. Stefon Diggs dropped a quote. I don't know with who. Oh, Sports Illustrated. Hey, look at that. This is the quote. There's only 7 to 8 spicy receivers who can catch, can create separation, can run fast, can stop. Okay? You know more about football than anybody on the planet, in my eyes. I know this is right off the top of your head, so it's tough. What's our list of 7 to 8 spicy wide receivers?
I mean, I'm assuming Stefon's list of top 7 or 8 guys is just his spicy receiver. So if we're talking we'll just say that's kind of the elite territory guys. I mean, it's got to start with Devontae Adams. I mean, I think for my money, Devontae's been the best receiver in the league for 2 or 3 years now. And then I think you got to go with Cooper Kupp. I know people try to knock him because of the scheme that he plays in with McVay, but dude, Kupp's still that guy. He's unbelievable. route runner. So I'll say those two. I always think
DeAndre
like he always
Hopkins?
kind of gets who?
Who were you saying? I said
I always
DeAndre
think this.
Hopkins.
See, Hot would be probably a little bit outside of that list now. I probably would have put him in there like a year or two ago.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I think the guy that always kind of gets left out of those like top 5 or top 6 conversations seems like Tyreek. And like there's
Tyreek was
nobody in
the
the
next
world
guy.
that can do what Tyreek can do. So
No.
I gotta put him in there.
Yep, that's 3.
Jamar Chase, definitely in there. I mean, we know about
the
him.
amount of love that we're gonna give Jamar Chase over the next 5 years is really
sucks.
gonna.
It sucks that he's in Cincinnati. Yeah, but I mean, he's a guy. He can, do pretty much anything that you want him to do on the football field. I would say probably the guy who I thought might have been. He might have had like the least talked about like dominant season. I felt like for a receiver in a long time was Justin Jefferson. That could just me be saying that because like obviously we cover the Steelers, and he's in the NFC, but like Justin Jefferson is like unbelievably great already. So those would be like my 5. I think outside of that, I'd probably have to go with Diggs.
I was gonna say, does Diggs make this list?
I agree that he's in that combo. Diggs is just so incredibly consistent, man. Like, and what he does for Buffalo is, tremendous. They got a great offense, and he's a big part of that. I think like after last year, I know it's not like a ton of, just a ton of, I guess, workload because he's had trouble staying healthy. But I think Debo's in that conversation, man. What he did for San Fran last year, I mean, carrying them to the playoffs.
Are you putting Debo in there? Like the create separation part is the part that gets me with Debo. Would you put him in there, or would you put him just outside of there? He is a remarkable athlete. I'm not trying to take anything away from that.
I mean,
he's a remarkable athlete.
Yeah, the thing about Debo last year was he was so dominant as a receiver the first like 8 or 9 weeks of the year, and then they literally just switched in positions, and he was dominant at that too. So it's kind of crazy. Like, I think his versatility is crazy. The stuff that they ask him to do with like going over the middle is really unique, and especially how good he is at it. And then just you talk about like the speed, like everybody's got different kind of archetypes or like things that they do really well. Debo's ability as a ball carrier, and it's not just on like screens or like when he's getting carries. It's just like when he gets the ball in his hands, it can be over the middle, 15, 20 yards down the field. He's a threat to score every time. And he was like that at South Carolina. It's really just a matter for him, can he stay healthy? And that's the thing. I mean, I think in terms of like do it all, guys, I think what you were saying, like with the create separation, I don't know if like, I think for me, that probably excludes maybe a guy like DK Metcalf who just can't really run the full route tree just because of like his body type.
I was thinking him and AJ Brown.
Yeah, but still like a great receiver. I mean, I would probably put AJ. AJ's in that conversation too. There's a lot of great receivers out there. I would say probably the guy who's probably got the best chance to leap into that conversation is CeeDee Lamb. Like I think now that Amari Cooper's gone, he's gonna be the number 1 receiver for Dallas. CD can do a lot of different things. He's a really well-rounded receiver. He's gonna be a part of a really good offense.
I forgot about CeeDee Lamb.
And then like another receiver, we're not gonna talk about too many more Bengals, hopefully the rest of the show, but another receiver who I thought was just absolutely incredible last year was T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins is one of the best receivers in terms of like playing the ball in the air in the league. And when him and Chase are on the field, it just creates so many like problems for a defense because you can't double team both of them. So they're like one of them you're gonna have to leave on the island. So, but yeah, those are kind of my 7, and then I mentioned some guys that are kind of like on that edge. Also, if Terry McLaurin ever gets a quarterback, we could probably throw him in there. We'll see though. I'm not a Carson Wentz guy though. So
I didn't realize. Nobody's a Carson Wentz guy at this point. I didn't realize until he signed his contract that Terry McLaurin's been through 8 quarterbacks in his 4-year career in the NFL. That's wild.
Terrible.
3 years.
Terrible.
It's awful. And it's only going to get – I mean, Carson Wentz – I want Hanky. Put Hanky out there. I don't need Carson Wentz. Like, that's where it is. Yeah, I agree. I think that top 7's pretty much there. DeAndre Hopkins – I don't know, man. I still am pretty big on DeAndre Hopkins. I think people are – they push older guys out. I understand that. Hop's been way better 2 years ago, but I don't know. He's only like what? Is DeAndre Hopkins even 30 years old yet?
Yeah, I think he is. He's also suspended for the first 4.
Oh, he is. Yeah. But I mean, come on, dude.
But that wasn't like I think that was just something,
Yeah. Everybody uses steroids, man. It's the NFL. Nobody's just naturally that ridiculous. It just doesn't happen. All right, let's switch it over. We were supposed to be talking Steelers defense, so let's do that. We're going to start with the defensive line and outside linebackers, so the edge rushers of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, last year, struggling, worst rush defense in the NFL. TJ Watt, Defensive Player of the Year, tied the sack record, should have broke the sack record. We'll get into all that stuff. I want to start list of questions here. Who on the defensive line do you think has the biggest? Do you have the biggest expectations for in 2022?
I feel like that's an easy answer. It's got to be TJ.
Yeah, obviously.
but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be TJ until for at least for the next several years, just because obviously the contract brings a bunch of expectations, but just what he is to that defense now. I think you could argue too now with Ben officially retired. TJ is the face, I think, of the Steelers. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with being like the face of the franchise. I know that's usually reserved for the quarterback, but I think he really is the face of the Steelers. So there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, being the highest paid defensive player in history. A lot of pressure that comes with that. So I'm going to say him. I do want to make it clear though that like we had to temper expectations in terms of like what a great year is. TJ had a historic year last year, deservedly won Defensive Player of the Year, but you have to understand that nobody's getting 20 sacks every year. Like, I mean, if he has 13, 14 sacks next year, like that doesn't mean he didn't play well or he played significantly worse. That just means the opportunities were different, or maybe some bad luck here and there. But I think it's got to be TJ because they really need him to be dominant, not just against in terms of rushing the passer, but also against the run.
What did the Steelers do this offseason, or still need to do, enable TJ to get 20 sacks again this season? I know there's a lot of factors, but TJ could get 20 sacks. Like he's capable of 20 sacks. It's everything around him. What have they done? Can they do to enable that to happen again?
I mean, to me, I think it's just more about, continuing to get him enough one-on-ones. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game when you're talking about, a pass rush. When you have a dominant pass rusher like that, that's going to command a lot of attention. Is how can you scheme up some one-on-one opportunities for him? So, I would say really for TJ, he's been healthy his whole career. There's not really a ton. I feel like he can really add to his game. He's still kind of working on that spin move, but I think really it just depends on they need the other guys to be good or better than they were last year. You need Cam to kind of hang on to that, really good trajectory that he's been on. He's kind of fending off Father Time. They need Alex Highsmith to take maybe another step forward, and then if you can get some pass rushing help from say, maybe it's Ogunjobi or maybe it's Leal later in the season. That can create some extra one-on-ones for him too. So
yeah, I agree. And I think TJ is the obvious answer there. Dude, I'm honestly like, if somebody said 22.5 sacks was the over-under for TJ this season, I might take the over. Like I might do it.
Right.
Because he's 26 years old. People peak at 26 years old. Like you're still, isn't that JJ won his first or second Defensive Player of the Year award at 26 years old, I'm pretty sure. I mean, a lot could happen. a lot could happen. But I agree with you. He's going to get double teamed as much as humanly possible. I think the addition of Larry Ogunjobi helps that a lot because you can't leave Cam one-on-one all the time, even though teams try to. If Tyson stays healthy, you got to focus on him. You can't ignore him, although you're not going to double team anybody else. But you have to pay attention to these guys. If TJ is getting double teamed, somebody else is getting to the quarterback. That helps TJ a lot. All right. When it comes to the other side of that question, biggest expectations, TJ Watt. Biggest concern for the Steelers' defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on it earlier. I think it's got to be something relative to the run defense. And I'm going to say my biggest concern is nose tackle in that regard. Only because, Alualu's kind of up there in age. He's recovering from a major leg surgery. This is not like a twisted ankle or, a knee sprain. I mean, this is full-fledged, serious surgery. So I just think with that age, how much they struggled last year to defend the run also plays a part in that. I mean, you just look at the impact that Tyson had 2 years ago. When he was on the field 2 years ago, they gave up 3.2 yards per carry against the run. That's fantastic. When he was off the field 2 years ago, they gave up 5.6 yards per carry. So a significant difference. And then we saw them last year. They had probably the worst run defense in Steelers franchise history. So they were pretty good with him when he was playing really well. And then they were really bad without him. So it's really, there's a lot of pressure. I think they put a lot of pressure on him to kind of get back to that standard, at least in terms of playing the run. And I'm a little bit worried that he may not be able to do that anymore at his age, recovering from that surgery.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tyson is a dude that you need him to play a larger role than what his age and body is going to allow him to play. I mean, I think you've said this before. If you could get one snap a series from Tyson, you're pretty good. You're pretty good shape. If you could get first down, maybe second down, definitely running downs out of him, that's all you can really expect this season. I was shocked that they didn't address defensive tackles or nose tackles somewhere. Like Monty Adams, I like Monty Adams. I think he's going to have a great season, but he's a third down guy. He's a pass rusher, a very true-blooded pass rusher. You need somebody else to clog that middle if they need to. That's not going to be Adams. It's not going to be Carlos Davis either. It's not going to be Khalil Davis. Henry Mondu is Henry Mondu. They don't really have an option. I don't see Isaiah Loudermilk moving over there at all. I think it's just those two. We'll see what happens. If something bad does happen, maybe that's what they use their $10 million that they bring into the season with. I agree with that one. I would say another concern of mine is outside linebacker depth. I think that one is also a little bit obvious. Avery is yet to touch the field, so I have no idea what to expect from him, but he also has played inside linebacker and outside linebacker. That's not the type of guy that anybody should want behind TJ and Alex to be the third guy. Besides that, Derek Tushka looks like the fifth dude because Tuzar Skipper looks like the fourth guy, best guy on the field, and that's super concerning because you need somebody else, especially if the Steelers are trying, and they have been trying for years now, to run a 3 outside linebacker system, and they can't put the pieces together to do so. Really shocked that they did not do that this offseason. I think that outside linebacker, we've talked about it a bunch of times, is a concern. Connor's got a question here in the chat. Anthony Barr, an option for outside linebacker. We've gone through a couple of those. Justin Houston signed with Baltimore the other day. I thought he was a good name that could have been added. Does Barr's another tweener? At this point, do you think anybody that's out there is even an option for the Steelers, or do you think that they're going to wait to see, and if nothing explosive happens, they're just going to rock with what they got?
Yeah, I remember Barr coming out of UCLA, did some pass rushing stuff, played along the edge, and then he's been more of that 4-3 outside linebacker for Minnesota. I think that want to rule him out completely. Because he is one of the more attractive names that's at least out there. I just don't know if he's like a real fit for kind of what they typically want in terms of like a 3-4 edge. But I think he could do it. I don't know what he's asking for, or like where the Vikings are in terms of like if they're even looking to bring him back at all or whatever. But I think we may be in one of those situations where like we may be headed into the second or third week of the preseason, kind of waiver wire watching a little bit to see who gets, released. And that will happen. I don't want to guarantee that something like that happens for an edge rusher, but there will more than likely be one or two guys that will get released that like could legitimately fill that third role. It just stinks because we talked about this. Actually, I remember having this conversation in our draft show, and then we talked about it after the draft too, that I was really surprised that they didn't kind of dip their toes into that edge rusher class, because this was a great edge rusher class. I mean, there was guys on day 3 that I was like, this dude can start. Like literally year 2 type of starters. And I was kind of surprised that they didn't do that, just given, the Melvin Ingram thing didn't really work out from an ego perspective. We'll just call it that last year. And how much they really want to have that third guy kind of in place.
Yeah, I agree. Jason's got a question here. This is a tough one. A surprise cut on the edge or outside linebacker, that might take looking at some rosters. I don't really know anybody off the top of my head that I could say, oh, that guy, chances are, won't make a team. A name that maybe, and I might just be stirring the pot here, but guys who were on Pittsburgh could come back. 2 of them in Tennessee, I believe, still. Ola Adenini and Bud Dupree. Neither of them made a big impact in Tennessee last season. Bud's under a big contract. I don't know what his numbers are, but a year removed from that ACL injury, you don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to say yes, but I would say they would welcome him back with warm arms if it was cheap. But no, I don't have anybody off the top of my head, I don't believe.
Yeah, that's a tough question. I would definitely have to do some browsing for sure in terms of who's available or could potentially be available. Really, what you'll probably more than likely be looking for is which teams took edge rushers in the first or second round that may have like an expensive veteran that they feel like they might not be able to afford anymore. Like I know there's been some talk about maybe Danielle Hunter.
Yeah,
that's a big piece.
That's a big name.
I know. Like pre-draft, I was listening to a podcast that said, Minnesota guys saying that Danielle Hunter's like long-term future in Minnesota could be a little bit up in the air. I know he's missed some games, so I don't know. I mean, who knows, man? It just kind of up in the air. We'll kind of see how.
Yeah, as
how
that starts to
out.
happen, we'll play it out and we'll see, who's on there. We'll go through options obviously later on. All right, keep moving forward here. A lot of new guys, a lot of up and comers. I feel on this defense. Who do you believe can surprise people the most this season on the Steelers defensive line?
I'm going to stick with my answer from last week. I'm going to say it's Leal. I just think talent eventually will win out with that kid. I don't know if it's going to be this year. I don't know if it's going to be in October or if it's in December. I just think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. I just think the kid's super talented. Like I said, like I have a couple things kind of on my bucket list in terms of what I'm anxious to see in training camp, and like very near the top of that is how Leal looks with that additional weight that he put on post-draft process. So, I really do. I think this dude can be a starting 3-4 in for a long time in Pittsburgh if he puts that weight on like I think he did. So I'm excited about that. I know there's a little bit of a log jam in terms of like names. I got a lot of names. It's kind of just a matter of, who's going to play where and what the snap distribution is going to be. But I think he's super talented, so I'll say him.
So before I give mine, do you think that there's a chance that at some point this season, Leal outsnaps Chris Wormley?
Yeah, I do. I think that Leal's potential and just overall talent, I think he's more talented and he will eventually take that spot. I just don't know if it's going to be this year. But I could see, especially if the Steelers are struggling against the run or say, they're having a similar defensive season, which again, if that happens, they're in big trouble. But if they're having a similar defensive season this year, say come November that they were last year, and they're just really struggling all around, I think that could be a move that they could put in and say like, all right, let's see what this kid's got. Because we've talked about it on the show about like the Steelers really struggled to stop the run, especially when Wormley was on the field last year. Not to say that was all his fault. Like you can look at on and off reports all the time and, numbers can sometimes lie a little bit, but I don't think that Wormley's like an incredibly great run defender. I just think Leal's talented. Eventually, he'll kind of break through.
All right, so I agree on that one. My guy who I think will surprise a lot of people this year is Isaiah Loudermilk. Bulking up last season. I don't understand why he dropped so much weight in the draft process last year. I don't remember what the reasoning was. Putting it back on, I think he said he's like 315 right now. That's huge. I think he obviously looks bigger. I think that year two jump he got
came in at like 260 last year, didn't he?
Dude, I think it was like 275. I was like, "What? You're 6'7", man. You're naturally 275 before you start being a football player." That's wasn't acceptable. I think he got the perfect amount of reps last season to, not kill his demeanor, but let him know, hey, this is the NFL. This is what to expect. Enough experience to make a second-year leap. I think they're going to rely on him a lot. Plus, he's a run stuffer, and they're going to need that a lot on this defensive front. I can see him moving across. So I would say Isaiah Loudermilk is my dude who surprises a lot of people this year, kind of maybe becomes more of a household name in year two.
Yeah, Loudermilk, we talked about guys that, they did a little bit better with on the field. With Loudermilk on the field last year, they allowed 3.8 yards per carry. With him off the field, they allowed 5.1. And again, it's a small sample size, but that's a pretty big difference. And I think, like you mentioned, Loudermilk's kind of ready-made to be a run defender. I don't know that he'll ever get there as a pass rusher, but like just with his body and the way he can use his length, I think he's already kind of there in terms of like being like a two-gap run defender for them.
Yeah, and look, Cam Hayward could play the next 10 years. I wouldn't think twice about it. I don't know why I wouldn't think twice about it, but I wouldn't. I think Loudermilk could play that complement role very, very well. All right. Who do you have the most hope for along the defensive line this season?
In terms of like, we talking like a breakout?
Sure.
I mean, I think it wouldn't surprise me if Highsmith had like 11 sacks this year, to be honest. I think that he was better than his numbers indicated last year, but I think a double-digit sack season for him wouldn't really surprise me. So I'll say him.
I like Highsmith. I want to go Larry Ogunjobi. I think Ogunjobi's gonna. I think they really, really struggled without having a true defensive end last season. I think that could change with Ogunjobi. I think he can make a big impact. Plus, I get that he failed his physical. The foot is nerve-wracking, I guess. But there was a team that believed he was like the answer to their defensive line, like was going to join Robert Quinn and be a monster on that defensive front. So I have very high expectations for what he could do. If he walks out of here with 8 or 9 sacks this season, the Steelers pass rush could be the best in football. Like it actually could be the best in football. All right, on the other side of that, who are you most worried about this season?
I'm gonna stick with everything they got going on at nose tackle. Like I like Alu, and I've talked about Monty Adams a good amount on Twitter, but I like both of those guys. I'm not sure either one of those guys are guys that I really want to play like 40% of the snaps. So I think they're both like complementary pieces. I just don't. We'll have to see. I mean, in the preseason, I know he's older, but I hope we get to see Alu a little bit in the preseason because I want to see like what he's what he looks like.
Do you think there's an actual chance he takes a snap in the preseason?
I do, but it probably won't be the first week.
No, definitely won't be the first week. If anything, week 4.
I think we might see him a little bit. But it's the nose tackle position. It's really just them stopping the run. I mean, we know just the division that they're in, especially because you're going to have to see Baltimore twice. You're going to have to see Cleveland twice. Those teams are going to run the football. So, like, if you don't stop the run, it is going to make your life a lot harder. Not to say you can't beat those teams, because they beat those teams last year when, they were atrocious against the run. But it's difficult, because what that does for your run fits and having to roll a safety down just to kind of get by. They need their defensive line to be a lot better, and their inside linebackers, which we'll talk about that next week or whenever we talk about that position.
Do you think there's any chance? First off, is Isaiah Loudermilk too big to play the nose? And if they're desperate, do you think he could play the nose this season?
I don't think he's too big. I'm not sure how he would do in that role, but in terms of just like what Loudermilk does really well is he understands, like, in my opinion, how to use his length, and then like he really figured that out. I felt like the second half of last year, like how to use his length and then how to maintain like gap integrity. Like he's usually in the right spot and he's usually got like his run fit down. He's not like incredibly powerful. If in terms of just like eating up blocks, if that's what you want him to do, like he might be able to do that. It's just a matter of like, I don't know that I've ever seen him really be played like over the center. So even when he was at Wisconsin, I mean, he was playing, same spot he's playing now. Wisconsin runs the same defense Pittsburgh runs. So that's why they've got all these Wisconsin guys all the time. Wyatt, him, Schobert. That's why the Wisconsin runs the same defense, at least front wise. So
do you remember the whole when Loudermilk got drafted? There was an entire debate on social media about whether or not he played defensive tackle or defensive end. Do you remember this?
I do remember that. I was surprised that Loudermilk got drafted. I watched his tape.
Oh, shocked that he got drafted.
Yeah,
the fact that they moved up for him, I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. I have no idea. And I was like, oh, TJ Watt must have known him and like said something. And then he's like, yeah, I've never met TJ before. I'm like, all right, this guy. No, they just picked a name. They're like that guy.
But I think that's a testament to Carl Dunbar. Like when you talk about development, like Loudermilk was a guy that like I think everybody was surprised got drafted as high as he did, and he not only dressed, but he contributed last year. So shout out to that. I mean, we talk about the draft process a lot on here, but it's not just always about who you pick; it's how you develop them and who your coaches are. So that's a testament to Dunbar, in my opinion.
Yeah. Dude, Dunbar is the man. The man. Every time I talk to a player and I bring up Carl Dunbar, it's immediate smiles. Like, Monty Adams told me that, he has no regrets going to Auburn. He loved Auburn. He's Auburn through and through. But he wishes that he could have got coached by Carl Dunbar in college because he was recruited by Alabama, decided to go to Auburn. And like that's just everybody loves Carl Dunbar. All right, before we head out of here, Baker Mayfield's gone from the Cleveland Browns. I'm not going to ask about Baker Mayfield, but now there is this notion that the Cleveland Browns, and Donnie started this notion, and he's hammering it hard, and I'm not going to let it go. That the Cleveland Browns can still be. This is a two-parter. That the Cleveland Browns could still be successful with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Thank you. You can't be like if 8-8 is successful, the bar is low.
Donnie knows better than that, man. Look, Jacoby is terrible.
Said 9 games.
The Browns have a really good roster, man. But this is a quarterback league through and through. It just is. That's how the NFL works. I'll be honest. Jacoby, one of the worst quarterbacks I've watched over the past like 2-3 years that I've gotten snaps. I think he's absolutely horrific. When we were talking about this is a serious question. All right. Man. People was talking about last year, like middle of the season, what are we going to do for a quarterback next year? When it became like a power rankings thing and we're talking about potential replacements for Ben, I was putting Mason above Jacoby.
Oh, yeah. Easy. I would put Mason above Jacoby.
With flying colors.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that I think Mason's a backup, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. But I don't think Jacoby's good at all. I really don't. I don't think you can put him on that Browns roster, which I think is a good roster, but no shot. I've even told some Browns fans on Twitter that same thing, man. Y'all know I speak the truth. I'm not biased. Oh, he's still in here. I don't know, man.
No way. How many times can you run the football in a game, even if you have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and be successful? You can't. You can't. Like, Derrick Henry is somehow a freak of nature, but teams catch on to tendencies. And, you can run the ball 45 times. You're not gonna win 9 games. It's just not gonna happen. Sorry. Thank you.
I mean, I guess to Donnie's point, I guess if Cleveland had the best defense arguably in the league, like the Steelers did 2019, let's say they had the best defense in the league.
They won 8 games.
and they lead. I mean, the Steelers also led the NFL in forced turnovers from the time Ben got hurt. So, like, you're going to have to go with they've got to be the best defense in the league in terms of, like, points, and they got to force the most turnovers. Then I guess maybe they can win 8 games. But I do not – I don't see it. I'll be honest, man. I think Jacoby's terrible. I'm telling you right now, and, like, people – we've already went through our, like, early predictions on, like, the Steelers record. I think the Steelers are probably hovering around 8 wins next year. Like, I have them between 7 and 9. Depending on what happens, we'll see. We'll give an official prediction once the preseason starts. The Steelers will sweep Cleveland next year if Jacoby's their quarterback for all season.
Easy.
Like,
he's got to be the quarterback for all.
Cleveland got swept. Cleveland got swept last year by the Steelers with the absolute worst Steelers roster that they've had probably since 2003.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see it. I don't see it. But, I mean, they're going to eventually – I mean, Deshaun's not going to get, like, an infinite suspension. I mean, he'll eventually be back there, and they'll probably be really good. But until Deshaun's back there at quarterback, I don't think there's anything to worry about in terms of Cleveland, to be honest.
No. Thank you. All right. I appreciate that. I needed that. I was doubting myself for a whole day.
Donnie's my dog, but I can't get down with Jacoby. I can't get down with Jacoby, man.
We'll go through everything, but I'm going to just toss it out there now. If the Browns win 7 games, I'm going to be really shocked next season. All right. We appreciate everybody for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. And as always, like this video and go use our promo code for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. We'll be back on Tuesday. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.